Welcome back, everybody. We're here yet again for another episode. Anthony and I. How you been, Anthony?
Now,
How was your week?
oh man, yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty decent. We had some problem jobs that are behind us now. We had some issues that were resolved, in our company, and yeah, worked through it. And I'm glad it's Thursday. Thursday means
Ooh,
tomorrow's a
yeah,
pretty
for
short day
sure,
for
for
us.
sure. I'll tell you
Definitely
what,
looking
I
forward.
I had a rough mental first half of the week, but I
Mm-hmm.
got I got to take a couple extra days off. My wife needed some. We needed to travel for some doctor's appointments and stuff, so I didn't have to go to work. Use some vacation time, and it was kind of like a reset for me. It felt good.
Yeah.
Obviously, I still have the weekend coming up, so that's going to help too. But I think it was much needed. I've been kind of getting just drained lately, so I
Oh
can't
yeah.
say that the week was that bad after that because I got an opportunity for a reset. So
Yeah. No, that's definitely important. It's like micro vacations, you know.
yeah,
You take a Thursday, Friday off, a Monday, Tuesday off, whatever. Elongate your weekend. Don't even have to go anywhere. Don't have to do anything. Just a
yeah,
mental break from knowing that you're going back to work.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So,
So today we're talking about Magic: The Gathering.
all right, all right. I dig it. All right, cool. Um, yeah, Magic the Gathering. I think that's a pretty big part of both of our lives, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
It's crept its way into my life and it's
hmm
found its chokehold and it's here to stay.
definitely, definitely. So, for people that don't know, Magic the Gathering is a card game, uh, created by, or at least printed by, Wizards of the Coast, and yeah, it's a game that you open up packs that have random cards in them, and then you can use those cards to create a deck that has X amount of cards. Different types of games have different sizes that you use, but yeah, you
yeah.
play against one player or multiple players, and you try and get some sort of win condition
Yep.
met.
Yep.
So most of the time, it's damaging your opponent from their starting life total down to zero, but there's a bunch of other ways that you can win as well.
Yep.
It's got a pretty good community. It's got a pretty decent community, especially in recent times. The game's been growing pretty exponentially.
Yeah.
There's a lot more support for it
Yeah.
nowadays
Yeah.
compared
It's
to when we started.
oh yeah. I
So,
think if I'm not mistaken, I read an article that it was the biggest game in the world, if not one
hmm
of the biggest games in the world, played
yeah,
by the most people.
yeah,
Like you said, there's so many varieties of like ways you can play,
hmm
different decks, and like you said, different sizes being 60 cards, 100 cards, 40 cards, whatever. So
hmm
you can there's a lot of joy. There's a lot of different things that people get out of Magic. There's
hmm
deck building, strategy, just trying to. There's so many printings of so many different cards that there's infinite like possibilities of things you could build. Um,
oh yeah.
it definitely draws in a lot of people, and we were two of those people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that it definitely scratches that itch for strategy.
Yeah,
With new cards being printed every year, multiple times a year, new expansions coming out. It's got a rich, long history. It just celebrated its 30th anniversary, I believe, last year or this year. So it's been around. It's been around.
mm-hmm.
It's comparable to Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon as far as, typical trading card games that you play against other players. Um it it has different formats as far as what cards you're able to use.
Hmm.
And
Right.
most of those are dependent on how old the cards are. So, and this is just
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I'm not saying this is 100%, but cards printed in the last 6 years is one type of format. Cards printed in the last 15 years are another type of format. And then all cards printed ever are a different kind of format. And so you go back in history farther and farther and farther to cards that were more powerful, farther and farther and farther back. And so the power level definitely creeps, but they're also more expensive. They're more
Well,
rare. They don't
and
make
it's
those
kind of
anymore.
the opposite of Pokemon though, because
Mm-hmm.
anybody who might be more familiar with Pokemon, um, the original cards, your Pokemon would have 60 life, 100 life. Now they
Mm-hmm.
have 350 life, and they do 350 damage. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a thing back in the day. So the power
Yeah.
creep, as you say, was really bad back then, or sorry, with Pokemon. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
with Magic, it's almost the opposite. Like, since they
Mm-hmm.
keep developing the game and not just making new cards with more power, they're
Mm-hmm.
really spending a lot of time to develop it. The old cards, it's like a backwards power creep because some of them were just too good now. Like, now
Oh
that the
yeah.
game's developed, those cards are broken. Like, they're really good.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
There's definitely certain cards that are printed now that interact with old cards,
mhm.
and so they get banned
That, yeah.
because they're just too good.
Hmm.
They're just too good. So yeah, I think that yeah, that's a great topic. I think why don't we start with how we got into it?
Hmm.
Um and I'll start. I
Okay.
so I I started in high school. I believe I want to say 16 or 17,
Okay.
and it was so I was living with a friend in senior year of high school. So it must have, yeah, I think I graduated when I was 17. So yeah, 16, 17. But either way, he used to play a game called Magic, and he just one day asked me if I'd ever heard of it. And I said no. So he started teaching me. I bought a bunch of. See, the thing is that I already was hooked when he showed me. He showed me how to play, and I was like, whoa, this is a really cool concept. So then I started doing research. I started looking up cards. I started looking up all this different stuff. And so when I was working at McDonald's, it was essentially, all right, how many magic cards can I buy before I can't pay my bills this month? So, um,
Yeah, I feel
I,
that.
I, and, but the thing is that one of the key elements of the game is knowing how to play. And there are basic rules and there are advanced rules. And if you know how to manipulate the advanced rules, it 9 times out of 10 will dominate somebody that only understands the basic rules. And so that was my downfall when I was playing against my friend. Um, was he knew the advanced rules, and so when I was building decks, I was spending a bunch of money, and I was just like, I'm gonna throw this in there, I'm gonna put that in there, and then oh yeah, he's gonna play that card again. I know I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna beat it with this, and he would still kick my butt so hard that I would just
Yeah.
want to spend more money to
It's
try and buy good cards.
I feel like everybody who gets into Magic does that.
Yeah.
We've all been there. We've all built a
Mm-hmm.
Hydra deck, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we
Exactly. We all just think that if you throw enough money at it, that
yeah,
you
yeah.
can you can win, but it's a
No.
it's a strategy thing. But also on the other side is there's plenty of cards that are not very expensive that
Yeah.
do amazing things that,
So
you know,
I just to like not scare people away, okay? If you don't play Magic yet, okay?
mm-hmm.
Don't. It costs a lot of money. No, but you're saying like with the rules and stuff, there's advanced rules and the simple rules. And that's 100%
mm-hmm.
right, and I agree with everything you're saying. But not to scare people, there's a huge community And there's a lot of good people out there that want
Mm-hmm.
to show you those advanced rules.
Definitely.
And I know, like in our play groups, we've played with lots of different people. I'm sure we'll talk about it more during this episode, but in almost every single situation, everybody's out to help everybody. You know, we're like, hey man, uh, take that move back. You don't want to do that, and here's why. And we explain it, and we're there to help. You know, help you learn,
Mm-hmm.
help everybody grow.
Yeah.
So, huge good
Yeah.
community. Don't get scared by that, but it is true. There's lots of rules, and it's very in depth.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah. So then, after learning from him, it just kind of evolved from there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to tournaments, and there's two main types of tournaments that I played, at least, which was bring your own deck or open up random cards. So
Mm-hmm.
open up random cards. Everybody, you have 6 players in a group, and we're all going to start and play against each other. Everybody opens up 5 packs of random cards, and then you build a deck from that. So it's limited, right? It's a limited format. You don't get to choose whatever you want. Money doesn't win. It's purely strategy and
Mm-hmm. And
and
luck,
I'm be honest. There's quite a bit of a luck factor in
yeah,
there.
but
Somebody,
strategy
yeah,
still,
strategy is important, but I'm saying that
yeah, yeah, for sure.
there's some cards that definitely dominate. But yeah, and then there's bring your
Mm-hmm.
own deck. Those are the ones that you see what you created, and you go head to head with what other people have created, and you go against each other and see
Yeah,
who's the last person standing.
and that's where
So,
those formats that you're talking about come in. It's kind of
mhm,
like, if you've never played card games, it's kind of like maybe like racing, like, or sports. There's different classes, right?
mhm,
Like if you're within this class of race cars, you can't have like this bigger motor. You can't have these fancier tires, whatever. I don't know what it is, but same thing with
mhm,
sports. You don't play college against NFL, that's just
right,
not a thing, right? So it's kind of the same thing. There's different formats so that you kind of keep people, especially with these bring your own deck formats, you keep people
mhm,
within like some sort of boundary of like what
right,
they're allowed to do. And then within that boundary though, you have free reign to do literally whatever you want, minus a ban list, which you mentioned a
mhm,
little bit.
yeah,
I don't even know where you see the current ban list, probably on like Wizards website.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely,
and they have ban lists per format and stuff. So you know what
mhm,
you're not allowed to play.
yeah, yeah. So, how did you get in?
Well, his name's Anthony.
Yep, I know
This
this
is,
story well, so that's the only reason why I'm laughing.
so actually, there's a little bit more before that. So when I lived in California, there was a game shop. My family was into games, board games, card games, trading games, whatever. Um, and we went to the card shop or the game shop all the time. I played a lot of Pokemon. I actually did a lot of Pokemon tournaments when I was a kid.
Mm,
So I was not new to tournaments when I got into Magic. I was just new to Magic. I
right.
played Pokemon tournaments for a long time. Um, and then I was playing World of Warcraft online, and the card game came out. And the card
Mm,
game was like, oh yeah, I have to. I play Pokemon. I like card games. I like World of Warcraft. I got to get into this. Well, I look back now and I realize World of Warcraft, the card game, is literally Magic, the card game.
oh, really?
Oh yeah, 100%. They just rename things. Instead of like
Yeah,
Trample, it's like Stampede. Like
yeah,
it's literally the same exact thing as Magic.
yeah,
There's little differences, but anyways, it made it easier for me to get into Magic. But
right.
there was also people who played Magic, and they weren't like people that I frequented. I was a really shy person. I was, that's why I got along with the Pokemon kids, right? Because I was very shy and I just wanted to play my Charizards, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I never got into Magic. It was a different group. And I just thought like, oh, I don't even want to bother because I don't want to get to know new people. Well,
Mhm,
nowadays I'm the opposite. But so I moved to Washington playing basically World of Warcraft only by that point.
Mhm.
And I walk into the card shop and I'm like, hey, uh, do you guys have any like World of Warcraft cards? He's like, yeah, we got some down here. Pulls out like 2 packs. Do you got any more? Like, do you have
Yeah.
anything else? They
Yeah.
they ended up stopped printing them a few years after that, but nobody here played. Nobody in Washington
Right.
played. So I was like
Yeah.
sitting there at the table, like looking at my cards, like I really want to make some friends. I just moved here.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking around. I'm like, magic, 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 magic. Do you got any cheap cards? Can I get into this for cheap? So
Yeah.
the card shop owner gets me into this. Uh, I think it was standard
Yeah.
format, which is like the newest. I don't know, year long of cards or whatever. It was
Mhm.
different back then, and he helps build me this deck out of like commons. So they're like cheap cards. It was like a
Mhm.
$20 deck, a 60 card
Right.
$20 deck. So they're like less than 50 cents each,
Mhm.
right? And that deck freaking stomped. It
Yeah.
was I it was really
Yeah.
good. It was a really good $20 deck.
Was
But it's
that
just
was that the double strike deck?
it was no, it was I can't remember the creature. Uh he had Phyrexian fire breathing. So I
Oh,
would
okay.
pay you start with 20 life.
Oh
So
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
I
I
would
remember that one. Yeah, yeah,
I'd
yeah.
pay 18 life to give him plus nine, and he was a 1/1. And I'd swing for 10, and then I would cast fling for 2 red mana to fling him at you for 10 more. So now
Yeah,
I've done
I
20
remember
damage to
that
you.
one. The fling deck. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was obnoxiously powerful.
It didn't do
Um,
anything else. It just did that. But that was really cool and
yeah,
worked really good.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
so now I'm not, at least I don't have a bad deck and I can play with other people who are good at the game. I think it
Mhm.
was like, so it made me excited to come back, anyways. Okay. So I show up again. I think it was like my second or third time ever to the shop. And there's 2 guys there, Anthony and our homie Hugo.
Mhm.
I think maybe you guys weren't even playing. Maybe you guys were buying stuff. I don't remember.
Yeah, probably.
And I was like sitting there flicking through my cards, that
Mhm.
is the card shop owner. He's like, "Oh, there's a new guy here. If you guys have time, you want to play with him? He's looking for people to play with."
Yeah.
And I think you guys said, "Oh, we're in a hurry. We got to go." But I think you were the one that said, "I'll be back tomorrow." Maybe it
Yeah.
was Hugo. I don't remember. So then the next day, I show up. I'm waiting for like 15 minutes. I'm like, man, they're not even gonna show up. They're making fun of me.
Yeah.
And then one of you guys showed up. I don't remember who again.
Uh-huh.
And the rest is history. We were
Yeah.
friends from then on.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, that was you know, I think that one of the biggest things was, I played with Hugo so much that we were just played the same things over and over and over again.
yeah,
And so one of the cool things about Magic, one of the cool things about going to a card shop is that specific interaction that we had, you know, is you go there and it is very common. Like right now I go to a card shop and this happens all the time is people will see either somebody not playing or they'll see like a really small group and they'll just say, "Hey, would you like a partner? Would you like, you know, to test out a deck? Or I have a deck that I'm trying to test out. Would you mind playing against me?" And so one of the
yeah,
coolest things, and this goes out past Magic, this it's just a cool thing that kind of hobbies in general, enthusiasm, enthusiast about certain things have in general is it's just a great way to break the ice with a total stranger. And so that was like a really awesome opportunity for us to interact without, you know, that that shy factor, because I mean, I was probably not, the most social person in high school, but when it comes to something that, I know this guy has a common ground with me because I know that he likes this because we're in a magic shop, it just makes it a lot easier to connect with people. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
I remember that day, and that was definitely an awesome experience.
I think
So,
in that way, Magic, that's kind of when I was like hooked, because
hmm
it kind of changed my life for like the better from then on out, because
hmm
I was so introverted, so like shy. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't know. I wasn't very good at making friends. I had friends, but like I wasn't very good at it. And
hmm
Magic is so easy to come out of your shell and do something new, because like you said, everybody's down. Everybody wants to play against more different decks. You
hmm
can guarantee that like you're going to have a good time if you just sit down with some random person and play some Magic. Even if,
yeah.
they kick your butt or whatever and then you call it quits, at least you interacted with somebody. It was fun.
hmm
So
Yeah.
it changed my life, and I really appreciated that moment in my life, and that it wouldn't have been without Magic.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? So like, so nowadays, who do you play with?
Well, so man, over the years it's changed a lot. There's been a lot of different
Mhm.
play groups. I think the best time ever was back when in our apartment always had
Yeah.
people over. That was crazy, but
Oh man.
lots of
Yeah.
Magic, and it was fun. Um, I unfortunately, I think both of us, since we moved, it kind of changed a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't had a local card shop to go to that's like within 5 minutes like I used to. Um, so for a while there, I didn't actually even play Magic.
hmm
Um, maybe a little bit here and there, but almost never. Cards kind of sat in a
Right.
box and got dusty. And then me and a friend started playing like once a week. And then we worked in the same place, and we're like, hey, like, let's play on lunch break.
hmm
So we were like, yeah, all right, let's do it. So we started playing on lunch break. Other people would be like, what the heck are you doing? What are you stupid playing cards? But then
Yeah, I
some
know,
people,
right?
wait, you guys play Magic? I play Magic.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think I said this in one of our other podcasts, but it was like that scene in Nemo where they're like, mine, mine, mine. It was like Magic, 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 Magic.
Yeah. You
Everybody,
definitely there's definitely a very specific amount of excitement in somebody's voice when they learn that you play Magic. Like, oh, I have so much to talk to you about
yeah,
right
I
now.
need to just spew my life at you, please.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
And
Yeah.
so it started a thing, and now we've got, I don't even know, like 8 people at work that just lunch break comes around, who's free, who's playing. Sometimes we
hmm
have 2 people, sometimes we have 6 people at a time, whatever. We've even had little tournaments and stuff,
hmm
which is really fun. Like we do like little $25, everybody just buy stuff for $25 and play. And
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to it in this episode, but in retrospect, or
Hindsight.
in comparison, sorry,
Ah.
$25 is like our main decks probably only have a couple cards that are under.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of cards over 25, we'll say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
uh, so $25 tournaments were a lot of fun. We did a bunch of those. So, but that's been
Right.
it. I've just been playing at work. It's been a lot of fun for still, because it's almost like that same vibe of like card shop. You see
hmm
new people that are like, wait, you play too? Um, so yeah. What about you? How have you been playing lately?
Well, I don't play that much, unfortunately. I I play digitally. I play Magic Arena on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it has its ups and downs. It has goods and bads, pros and cons. It's one of the biggest cons is you don't see the other person.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to talk to the other person. It's just that there's somebody else on the other side of the screen. So the other thing that is unfortunate about it is the amount of cards that you have access to. So they do not print all the cards online, at least not on the app that I use. So I use the newer app. There's an older app that's been around for a long time, and I'm pretty sure it has almost every single card. There's a couple cards that either can't be coded into the program, or they just haven't got around to coding it into the program. Because you got to imagine, like, you create this engine, you create this code that whenever this card is played, it interacts with all these different things happening at the same time. That takes a lot of coding to make sure that the process happens correctly, because it's a lot easier to just tell somebody what you're doing, right? In
Hmm.
person, you can say, okay, I'm doing this, which is going to do this, which is going to do this. But to code all that and to get it to work correctly the way it's supposed to do it, it takes a long time. And so there's cards that have very complex effects on them that they
Hmm.
just haven't got around to putting onto to Magic Online.
Well, the other thing is too, like what you're saying is there's a thing called the stack in Magic, and it's like
Mm.
effects that this effect affects this effect affects this effect, and it stacks. Okay, that's why it's called the stack.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
imagine it like a fighting game where you have like the combos where you like X up Q W, and like that game needs to know that like after you've hit this sequence, you do this special attack or whatever, right?
Right.
And Magic Arena is so much more complicated because every card has so many more interactions, and those are
Mm-hmm.
interactions can stack with other interactions, and you've got to code all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So one of the cool things about one of the good things about playing on your phone is that I don't have to go anywhere
Hmm.
to play when I want. If I have that itch, I'm like, oh man, I've been thinking about this card all day. I looked up the price. I'd really like to put it into a deck. I'm gonna get it digitally. I'm gonna put it in a deck. I want to play this right now. But at least the card shop that I go to is about 50 minutes from my house. So
Hmm.
I can't just go there, play for a little bit, and then come back. Whenever I go, it's usually, okay, I'm going to be gone for the next 6, 7 hours, because it has to be worth the trip. Games can take a long time. So being able to just pick it up, play 5 games, and then 20 minutes later I'm done, is very convenient, and it really gets that itch when you just like, I want to jump into a game right now. So that's one of the really big pros for it. One of the cons is that it has literally zero monetary return. So if you go in paper and buy a $50 card, the card might go up, it might go down, but let's just say in a completely, average world, it stays at $50. So I play with the card. I don't really like it. It doesn't fit with my deck. I don't want it. So I can sell it for $50. The thing about online, and this is Arena, I'm not talking about the older version that has the entire library of cards. This one, you spend money to get in-game currency, and then you use that to get random packs, and then you open those up and see what you get. So there's no way to sell them, to get rid of them, to exchange them. Whatever you get's what you get. And so
Yeah.
it's very discouraging when you have, okay, I put 500, which is very reasonable price for some competitive decks. I put $500 into this deck for paper to go to a tournament, and you play it, and whatever, you don't want it anymore, you sell it maybe a little bit lower, maybe some of the prices go up, so 400, 600. You put $500 into Arena, those cards are locked onto your account, and if you just decide, all right, I'm not going to play Arena anymore, that's it. It's
Yeah.
stuck on that account forever. Where if you tomorrow quit Magic and you're just like, all right, I'm done playing paper, you can at least, get some of that money back. There's zero return for Arena.
Yeah.
And that makes wanting to do free to play and not spending money more appealing. The only problem is they throttle you on how many cards you can actually get. So it's, I mean, obviously they got to make money. It's just, it gets a little egregious sometimes.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
little in your um, you know, money wins in certain respects on Arena, and it can get frustrating.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so I play on Arena. As far as person,
Hmm.
I try and go once every other week, which, I mean, compared to playing with your lunch group every day is,
Or
kind of a drop in
at
the
least a
bucket.
couple times a week. But yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Um so, and I go for the night. I leave around 4, I get home around 11, and it's really cool cuz the place that I go um is a bar and a restaurant on top of being a card shop.
That's so
So
cool.
it is it is really cool because you can, and the thing is it is packed with people, and it's, and I think one of the really cool aspects of it is that it's not just packed with Magic players. There are people playing board games. There are people playing Warhammer 40K, which, if you don't know what that is, that's little figurines on like a battlefield that interact. They shoot and kill each other and stuff like that. Um, there's people playing D&D. There are people playing um, all different, like, other types of card games. And
That's
then
so
not only
cool.
that, dude, I'm telling you, this place is awesome. But not only that, everybody's drinking. They have servers coming asking for people's orders. You can get food. They deliver it right to your table. Of course, it's eat and drink at your own risk. I mean, I'm not even kidding. I saw somebody knock a beer over on a Magic table, and I could feel his pain. I
So
don't know how much his cards cost, but I would
we
be devastated if it hit my cards, but I'd be even worse if I knocked it over on somebody else's
oh
card.
yeah, somebody else's cards, yeah. So you remember back at the apartment days, right?
Hmm.
I used to, I think it wasn't even our apartment. I think it was the apartment I had after that.
Right.
Um, there's a lot of people that ended up coming to my apartment to play Magic.
Hmm.
And we would always eat and drink, and it was a lot of fun. That was like a good portion. It was because it's hanging out with friends, and
Yeah. You want to be comfortable
adding,
for sure.
yeah, adding food and drink and stuff. Not just alcoholic, but whatever. Just a little. It's an extra little something, and you can't really do that at a card shop.
Hmm.
And it was nice, But the rule at my place was like, hey, look, you got a drink, you leave that on the kitchen counter because
Yeah.
there's $1,000 of Magic cards and somebody's gonna kill you. So just leave
Yeah.
your drink in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
and that was when
No,
we were
I
poor. I can't imagine.
yeah, I know. And so um yeah, it's a great vibe. Everybody, and that's what I'm saying. When I was there, it was really funny. So it's a little bit of a story, but here's the interaction, right? I'm playing with my buddy Devin. Our group leaves. Devin's able to stay. I'm able to stay. So I was like, all right, well, you want to play one more, just me and you? It's like, all right, yeah. Guy just rolls up and he's like, hey, do you guys want a third? I was like, yeah, sure. Oh, I'm Anthony. Oh, I'm Devin. Freaking Mark or whatever his name is. And he pulls out this. It looked pretty fancy. He's, obviously bought the more expensive versions of the cards, put a lot of time and effort into it. And being the nice guy that I am, I purposefully did not, defeat him, kill him in the game early on, even though I could. And what ended up happening is he won because I gave him enough time to set up. And then when he was attacking me, I had no way of stopping him, essentially. And I remember thinking, is it really worth it to win? It was a nice, he was a nice guy. He was really chill. Um, but I mean, just the fact that a random stranger can just see you, obviously interested in something they are, and
Yeah,
just, hey,
let's
do
play.
you want to, it's just,
Yeah.
it's such a good community. It
I
really
think
is.
that one interaction sums up like one of my favorite interactions ever in Magic. Like
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you can, I don't know. I used to do it a lot more back in the day, but we'd be playing games and you'd be playing with your friend who again just made a new deck and he's trying to play test it, right? He's trying to see like work out the kinks.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're like, it's turn 4. He hasn't really done much. I could hit him for the win, but pass turn. And you just
Yeah.
like let them have their moment. It was kind of like in our
Yeah.
hobbies episode, we were talking to your friends about different hobbies and just you might not be into it, but just you know, entertain the idea. Just talk to them about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. Like just let them have fun too.
Mm-hmm.
You were gonna win. It was fun. You had fun. You
Yeah,
let
I
them
know,
have fun
right?
now.
Oh
Like
man.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So okay. Without going into too specific, right?
Okay.
Because we're under the assumption that a lot of people listening, whoever it is, friends and family, they either don't know Magic, never played it, don't understand it, and we're not going to break everything down. But what are your favorite parts, strategy wise, synergy wise, like mechanics that you can break down into layman's terms? What type of player do you like to be, or at least what type of decks do you like to play?
I like to try to play decks that are. I don't want to sound like a hipster, but I like to try to play decks that are different.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's hard to be different because there's just everything's different. Magic. I mean, I guess it's
Yeah.
hard not to be different. Everything's different. Magic.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many strategies, but I I always try to find something weird, like some
Mm-hmm.
weird deck that's like what. So you show up and people are like,
Are you
okay,
sure about that?
um, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had one back in the day that was a curse deck. I think you remember the curse deck.
Yeah, yeah.
And basically what it is it was just like a really slow deck. And all I did was in Magic you build decks to be fast. Like that's one of the things about Magic I don't like is if you're trying to play some slow strategy, more often than not you're going to lose because everyone else is trying to play a fast strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I just put like defense in my deck to where I could like wait out a couple turns so I could get to my slow strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like amazing or anything, but I remember being in the card shop and like beating someone with a really good deck. And then somebody next to us said, "Are you playing a curse deck?"
Mm-hmm.
And then someone else was like, "A curse deck? Where? Let me look at it." And then somebody else, "Look, there's a curse deck?" And then we're in the middle of a tournament. There's like 20 people, and now they're all watching our game
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm playing this weird deck, and everybody's like, "What? What's
Yeah.
that?" And that moment was like a core memory in my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is what the player I want to be. I want to be the player that's playing that weird, shouldn't work but it does strategy.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's kind of the decks I
that's
try to
awesome.
make.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
What about you? What kind of
Well-
player are you, Anthony?
Okay, I do like 3 types of decks.
Okay.
I like combo. I really do. I really like complex strategies
Yep.
that
Mhm.
involve knowing the rules down to a science. And those decks are usually really hard to pilot. They're usually frustrating when you have A, B, and you can't find C because you draw 1 card per turn unless you have cards that let you draw more cards, or you have cards that let you find cards from your deck. And so when you're limited to only 4 copies of any one card, with a couple exceptions, it makes it to where you either have to be drawing a lot of cards or you have to find a way to get it out of your deck specifically to make A, B, and C work all together. I like that.
Yeah.
It can be very frustrating when you get A, B, and then you're about to get C, and somebody destroys A, and so you have to go find it all over again somehow while also not dying.
Yeah. You're playing catch up
And
the whole
so,
game. You're
yeah,
like, oh, A,
but
B, oh, you killed A, C, B, oh, you
yep,
killed A again, A,
yeah, yeah, and so, but there are also, but they're also very strong because when you do get A, B, and C, which I mean, the deck you're building is supposed to be consistent. Like that's what makes a combo deck powerful, is that with the 4 copies of A, 4 copies of B, 4 copies of C, and then 4 copies of searching, 4 copies of drawing a bunch of cards, 4 copies of something that brings it back from the graveyard after it's been killed. All of a sudden, you have 12 copies of some way to get A, B, and C into the
Yep.
battlefield to actually do its thing. And so, even though it might die, that won't be a permanent solution. So anyway, long story short, when all the pieces come together, it usually does something that allows you to win the game. And so, getting all of those little pieces together and then having them all interact, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
other type of deck that I really like is what's commonly called a control deck. And what a control deck, there's a lot of people that don't like it. I'll be honest.
No, a lot of people just unsubbed and clicked off. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know, right? um, and so one of the biggest parts of Magic that is very annoying, but it has to be there in order to keep certain decks in check. Otherwise, they'd win all over the place. Is counter spells. And so what a counter spell is essentially Aaron is going to play something. I'm going to play a card that says, no, you don't.
Nope.
And
Nope.
that's the end of it.
Yep.
So,
Sure is.
what the only way the game works is that if nobody is playing those no you don't get to do it cards, then the decks that have the A plus B combo, not even the C, just A and B, and I win the game, those decks would just run all over the
Yeah.
place because they'd have nobody that's just like, no, I'm going to stop it. And so the idea is that if you have enough people playing the no you can't do it decks and enough people playing the A and B I win decks, those will get paired up against each other enough to where one is not
It,
dominant over
it's
the other.
it's basically like the animal kingdom. You're trying to keep a healthy ecosystem, right? And
Yeah,
you need predators and prey. You can't have one without the other.
right.
I'm not trying to say
Yeah.
one's a predator and one's a prey, but you need the
Well,
entire
the control deck
ecosystem.
is definitely a predator.
it's it needs to be a thing. You're right, 100%. And
Yeah.
just to prove another part of that point, when we were talking about being new players and making those mistakes of like not knowing all of the rules and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact I was horrible at it at first because I didn't want to play stuff like that. And so I would just make these decks and just wish they would work. And then they never would
Yeah.
because everybody else
Mm-hmm.
had something to like control what their opponent's doing. Because
Yeah.
without, you're trying to get your combos and get your cards set up and whatnot. But without controlling your opponent a little bit, like trying to stop them from doing theirs faster than you,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably going to do it faster than you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I
No,
know that every deck needs those things to keep your opponent in check.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, and so control,
Mm-hmm.
I think the one of the biggest, control might sound like the end all be all, like I can stop Aaron from playing something, boom, done. He tries to play something else, boom, stop it, right? But one of the biggest downfalls of a control deck is using all your resources, but your opponent still has more stuff to do, right? So if Aaron is playing a card that can be played a second time from the graveyard after I've already dealt with it, then I have to use another card to stop it a second time. Where Aaron used one card to play it, I stopped it, and he's using that same card from the graveyard in order to attempt to do it again.
They
And
call
so,
it card advantage.
Yes, card advantage. Yeah.
Right.
And so one of the things that control players have a problem with is that if somebody's playing a value oriented deck, they're going to outpace you and you're not going to have enough no you don't get to do it spells. And so every time you use a card, it goes to the graveyard, you don't get to use it again. And there's obviously exceptions for that. But, you know, if I have 5 cards, my opponent has 5 cards, and every time he plays something, he goes down to 4, and then I play one to stop it, right? I go down to 4. So it's a 1-for-1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if he plays it from the graveyard, he's still at 4. I use something to stop it. Now I'm at 3, right? And then
Yep.
next turn he
And
does
he's
it
still at
again. I'm
4.
down to 2.
Yep.
Exactly. And so they just bleed your resources by playing threats that can be recurring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so control decks have to figure out that balance of no, you don't get to do that, but then also finding a way to win the game too.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of deck that I like to play on Arena.
Yeah. Well,
I don't like to play it in person very much.
it you had some back in the day, and I think that's
Yeah.
another good point is you still need a win condition for yourself. Not only
Yeah.
do you need to try to trade 1-for-1 as often as possible, but then what? What are you doing
Yeah.
to like win? Are you gonna kill them? Are you gonna mill them out of their deck? Like what?
No,
You know,
see,
and
it's breaking their spirit to get them to concede the game.
walk away. Yeah, okay, I see. That's what it feels
the win
like.
condition. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've looked at my hand of cards and I'm just like, I could stop them from doing anything for the next 5 turns, but I can't win the game. I can't do
But
anything.
then you start thinking about like, are we still gonna be friends?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, there's a point of no return. It's after you've countered the 8th card in a row that they're just like, yeah, I got to rethink this because although like control is powerful and it might be fun to play for me, it's not very fun to play against. And a lot of people will tell you that, oh, you're playing a control deck. Can you play something else? You know, or I don't really feel like playing against a control deck right now because you're there to have fun. You're there to like A plus B, plus C, try and win the game. But
Not
when
A
you
nope,
literally,
B nope, C nope, D nope,
yep,
E nope.
if I'm literally like, okay, Aaron, I'm playing this. Do I get to play it? No. Okay, fine. Next. Okay, Aaron, here I go again. Does it resolve? Do I get to play it? Nope. Okay, cool. All right, go ahead. Your turn.
We'll just go ahead and put it out there that control decks are probably the most memed, disliked versions of Magic. Yeah. But it's a thing for a reason. Like you said, it's important to have that to keep other decks in check, and it is a solid strategy. There is good, easy ways to win using control.
Yeah. But just like any other, triangle and video games or other card games is, A is good against B, but weak against C. So it has to be that way. But anyway, so yeah, that's our favorite parts and strategies and synergies. So do you watch any YouTubers consistently that are Magic related content?
I do not.
No.
I've always kind of been like, I try to stay, I don't know, off the grid with Magic stuff. Even when you guys first got me into it, and there was like, look up combinations online or look up decks people have built. That was never my thing. I always like wanted to figure it out on my own, and I struggled for years. I was just so bad. I've gotten way better now, but like, it was a hard road.
Yeah,
because
definitely
people have figured it out. People know, and it's as easy as kind of looking it up and figuring it out. Just copying that. But
right,
I never wanted to, and so I don't watch YouTube. I don't look at Magic content ever. I just if I find something like I'm playing against an opponent, some random person at the card shop, and they do a combination that I'm like, oh, that was really cool. Yeah, I might like try to use that later. But for some reason in my head, this is just totally me. I don't know why. I
Mhm.
have to see it in person, or it's not for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's like I read about it online. This wins. Trust me.
but no, I don't. What about you? I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah. No, so I think this kind of ties into uh one of the other topics that we wanted to talk about, which is the cost
Hmm.
of playing. Um I watch a guy that what's his name? Uh Thraben U, which is Thraben University. And he plays a lot of Legacy. So you
What
have
format?
Modern, you have Legacy, and then you have Vintage. And that's a timeline, right? So Modern is the last 6 years. Let's just say that's probably not right, but the last 6 years. Legacy is the last 15 years, so it's more powerful. It goes back farther in time. And then um, Vintage is everything. So he plays right in the middle. And I really like that because he plays some absolute broken stuff, right? Some of the
Hmm.
stuff where you're just like, and it's not even just him playing it. He sometimes gets paired up against it because he does tournaments, right? And when he's going over a deck that he's playing,
Hmm.
and he's just sometimes he's just like, oh, are we getting turn one? Yep. Oh, okay. Yep, we're getting turn one. Yep, I'm not even mad about it. That's just part of the game. But then there are other times where he's just like, oh yeah, boom, boom, boom. Turn one, my opponent, and it's very difficult to turn one somebody when you're playing with only the last 6 years of cards because there's not as many broken cards. But yeah, when the farther back you go, the easier it is. There's some decks in Vintage that even if you're not the first player, like you have obviously somebody has to go first, right? So if you go
Yeah.
first, you get the first turn, you get the first resource, you get the first spell. There are decks that are so powerful that even if you go first, I can still win because there are lands that enter, you know, if you were the second player that tap for any color, and there's cards that you can play from your hand that give you mana without even having lands. And I know a lot of that doesn't make sense, but just know that like the farther back you go, the more powerful it
Yep.
gets. So he plays right in the middle, and the expanse of cards. Like I play Modern, which is the last 6 years, a lot in person, um, and so I'm very familiar with those decks. I'm very like if you said Crashing Footfalls, I know exactly what you're talking about. You say Emrakul or Omniscience or somebody that's playing Storm or somebody that's playing Merfolk or whatever. I know the cards that come to mind. The at least the key cards. But then you get to the decks that he's playing, and it's stuff that I've never seen before.
Hmm.
And it's just a really awesome learning experience because he explains all the decks and what they do. And it just makes it to where I'm exposed to it, but I'm not physically playing with those cards because some of those cards,
Yeah.
they get spendy.
I think all my modern decks are probably legacy by now. They're not like OP legacy. They don't have the
Mm-hmm.
good combos from all the years because most of my modern decks or
Mm-hmm.
legacy were actually
Yeah.
standard decks, which is the last like year's worth of cards that just got old. I
Mm-hmm.
added some stuff here and there, but so the main format I play in person is Commander. Commander is like legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You get cards from I believe the same pool all the way from now all the way back almost infinitely. I think there's a ban list and stuff, but so I get
Mm-hmm.
exposed to a lot of cards and a
Yeah.
lot of combos. The thing about Commander is it's harder to it's not harder to break. The way to break cards is a little different
It's
because when you're
different.
talking
Yeah.
about all Magic formats, not all of them, but most any Magic format, you can have 4 cards in a deck of the same exact card. As soon as you get to Commander, it's one of the only formats where instead you get one of each card, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's more cards to pick from, but you can't guarantee that card as easily.
Yeah. Consistency is a big issue. Yeah.
Exactly. So there are commander games where you're like, oh, turn 3, I won. But that's not as common, right? It's more like more often than not, you're going 10 turns, right? And that's why I liked commanders, because it lets me play those decks that do that,
Yeah.
and get to play out your strategy, regardless if you won or not. You got to play it out at least.
Right.
So
I think one of the probably most important topics is cost. And I think me and Aaron both agree. Might love Magic a little bit more than we should.
yeah.
So, okay. I think that, I think that you can play Magic on a relatively cheap budget. I'd say that if you're spending $70 for a PlayStation 5 game, you can build yourself a decent semi-competitive deck. I mean, if not like for a tournament, because one of the things is, at least when I'm comparing decks, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that think like this, so let me know if you do. But I think of a deck and I compare its power level to, would it be competitive in a tournament? Right. So when I say competitive, that is relative. Okay. If my play group all decide that we're only going to spend $100 on a deck, then if I spend $100, I'm being competitive with them.
Yep.
If I go to a tournament where people are literally, like, some of the biggest tournaments have thousands of dollar prizes.
Right.
So you're fighting for a $60,000 grand prize. These people are not only paying tickets to be there, but they're bringing decks that sometimes can be $3,000 and $4,000 for like legacy and vintage. I mean, even in modern, some of the best modern decks are close to $1,000. I mean, some of them probably even over that. But your budget deck, unfortunately, will not be able to compete with them consistently. Not to say that it can't win, not to say that it's not possible. Just consistently, the more expensive decks are expensive for a reason, and that's because the cards are sought after because they're good and they win. So, that being said, competitive is relative. So, I think that $70 for a brand new PlayStation 4 game or PlayStation 5 game, $70 for a deck can get you a very fun deck to play with other new players, with your friends that you're trying to get into it with. It can probably keep up with, a fair amount of good decks, competitive decks, whatever. So I think like a good threshold for starting is you have super budget, which is, I would say, about 50 and less. So you could literally build a deck for $10-$15. It might not be that great, but it'll work, it'll function. But I'd say like the threshold to start, and this is just purely my opinion, $50. If you're just like, okay, I'm going to start with $50, you can build yourself a good deck. I think the one jump up from there, if you really want to dive in and really give yourself like a big wide pool and a lot more possibilities, it's not so much constrained by finances, is 100. I think 100 is a good price point for, I'm going to give it a good try. I'm going to give it a good dive. I'm going to give it a little bit of research, maybe start a little collection. $100. So that's my opinion on the lower side.
Absolutely. I think that one thing to think about too is, if you're a new person trying to get into it and you're looking at those price points, is that more often than not, the people you're trying to play with, Magic players inherently want more Magic players. It's like hive mind, we're trying to infect the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And the more people we infect, the more people we can play with. So if we're trying to get a new person to get into this game, right, and they only want to spend $50. I'd say more often than not, way more often than not, that Magic player is going to go, yeah, I'll go, but I'll build a deck that's the same price so that we can compete competitively with this new person, so that they have fun and they get addicted.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you say that, because I literally did that with one of my friends. He you know, I told him outright. I was like, look, we spend a lot of money on these decks, and we all play against each other because we want it to be fun at that competitive level.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a precon, and not precon like an official product, but the card shop there will take commons and uncommons, put them in a deck that actually works, and then they'll sell it as a little pre-constructed deck.
Mm-hmm.
And they give you like a little card on the front that tells you what it does and stuff. But they have all these, and they're only like $10-15. And so I was like, boom, you get that one, boom, I get this one, and I was teaching them the rules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little $15 investment. So yeah, it is definitely. And you know what, the other thing that people do, and you do this, I've definitely done this in the past, is, oh, you know, you don't want to spend a bunch of money, you understand the rules, here, why don't you use one of my decks?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. We do that a lot.
And yeah, and even though you're playing against something you already know, it's not keeping them from playing the game just because they either choose not to or can't. I mean, a lot of the times it's people choosing not to. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go spend 30 grand on a brand new car. It's just not my thing, right? But that doesn't stop other people from doing it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Magic, you know. So, but yeah, I mean the loaning, you know, I even knew guys that would borrow people's decks just to go into a tournament and then, you know, give it back to them.
Another core memory of mine was we went to the card shop, you and I, and you brought your Magic cards, and I was just going to be like, oh, I'll just buy some. Yeah, I'll go with you. I'll pick up some stuff and then we'll come home and play. Yeah. And we get there and they're having a tournament that we didn't know about. And you're like, oh, bro, I want to play this tournament. And I'm like, oh, I didn't bring my cards and they're already starting and I don't have time to go home. And you're like, take this deck and play.
Yeah.
And I swear I won.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I got first. Did. I remember getting a playmat and some booster packs, so I think I got first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a control deck.
I think the playmat was definitely...
But yeah, that was another core memory, you know? I just borrowed somebody's deck, and because I know the strategy in the game well enough, it was easy enough to just play somebody else's deck. But if you got somebody there explaining it to you and you're a new person, it's the same thing as just starting with anything, you know? Doesn't matter what you start with as long as somebody's explaining it to you.
Yeah, exactly. So what about you? What well, why don't we just say what is the most amount of money that you have spent for a single card?
Okay, so that's easier. I haven't spent a ton on a single card. Okay. I don't have a lot of super expensive cards. I think the most I've ever spent on a single card is like $50. And there's probably less than a handful of those that I've ever bought ever that were anywhere near $50. So to be fair, I've spent way too much money on Magic. However, I do so in small increments.
Yeah. Oh man.
What about you?
I think the most, well, I mean, it's nothing crazy. I think the most expensive thing I bought was for my commander deck. You know, it's a lot easier to spend $50 once because
on a commander deck.
It's 100 cards and you only get one of each, versus a typical deck that has 4 copies, and so you want 4 times 50, which is 200. So the comparison is pretty significant. And so I think I spent 80 to 85, and it was for Natural Order, which is an older card, and
really good. Really good.
It's pretty stupid broken, but
there's a reason it's $80. To be fair,
I mean, I don't think it's that anymore, but
some of the cards that I've bought are worth that, but I've never purchased one above 50.
Yeah.
All of my purchases have been, luckily, well, I've lost a bunch of money too, but luckily a lot of my expensive cards were
Oh, yeah.
bought cheaper than they are now.
Mm-hmm. When I first started, in Innistrad, Olivia Valderon, I believe is what it was a flying 4/1 vampire. It was a vampire werewolf themed set.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, I want to say she was like at a high of 35 per.
Woof.
And I had a playset.
Woof.
And I was like, oh man, dude, this deck's going to be so good. And blah, blah, blah. You know, I played tournaments and I won some, I lost some. It did good, it did bad, whatever. Then she rotated out of standard because that's what happens. It is a $3 card now. So you take,
as soon as you told me
card,
$30, I was like,
yep.
It's not 30 anymore.
No, it is not. You look at some of those cards and it just, but
some of them are the opposite.
Exactly. There is some on the opposite. And I think most of it is influenced by Commander because cards that are good in Legacy, cards that are good in Vintage, cards that are good in Modern, they're good
in Commander.
And new cards don't really affect them too much. Sometimes there'll be like an extra key piece to it that might make the card that just got printed go up, and maybe in turn will make something that's not very expensive go up. But, you know, A plus B that was only printed 12 years ago, right? A plus B will always be good. No matter what they print more, A plus B will always be good. So yeah, when it comes to freaking standard, it's a gamble, but when something is really good in Commander because somebody's like, "Oh my goodness, I found this new strategy with this card." All of a sudden your card that you're like, "Oh, is only like, you know, $4 or $5, 30, 40, $50." You know, it can happen, and it has happened.
Yeah, there was another card in Innistrad. Speaking of Innistrad, the Vampire Werewolf set, I had a play set of because I had a standard deck that you could have 4 of each. And one day somebody was asking if I had some. And I was like, yeah, I got some. How much are they? You know, I look it up and I'm like, these are $42 each.
Tell me it wasn't Huntmaster of the Fells.
No, it was I can't remember. I know the card like really well, but for some reason I'm drawing a blank. Black 5-drop enchantment. Whenever your opponent loses life, you gain that much life.
Oh, Sanguine Bond.
Yes. And I'm like, oh, I have 4. And then I'm digging through my cards and I'm like, I have 5. I have
yeah.
And I paid like $6 for these. Yes.
Yeah.
Finally, Magic is paying.
Yeah, I think that whenever that happened to me and I looked up a card and I was like, whoa, this is way more than I spent on it. I end up holding on to it and not selling it
until
then it crashes in price.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the price went up, but I still want the card. So it's kind of pointless that it went up because I'm not going to sell it.
It's a very volatile system. You know, the market, if you will. It's it is what it is. It's a lot of fun. I try not to like care too much about prices, but like you said, there are some formats where you can kind of count on them a little better than others.
All right, so I think we're gonna wrap it up with one last question.
All right, what do we got? What's on the agenda?
Would you recommend this to just Joe Schmo that's listening right now?
Well, I believe heavily in the hive mind. So
well, that's because the hive mind's telling you that.
Yeah. The little worm is in my head. Shout out Baldur's Gate 3. No, I really, it's tough because for me, it's easy to say, yeah, I can spend money on this. And it's hard. It's hard when you're a new person because you can get kind of like almost peer pressured into spending money.
Yeah.
And I think that if you have like a strong will, yes, it's easy. I'd say get into it. Try it, you know?
Mhm.
Uh but like if you can financially afford it, yeah, get into it. Cuz again, it doesn't matter. You could spend $50, you could spend whatever. But just like, we started spending, I never spent over $100 on a deck ever for a long time.
Mhm.
Now, I don't have a deck that costs less than a couple $100, like it's just a different time, right? And that's the thing is like you need to know yourself and like what you can get into. And I don't want to say
Mhm.
like if you have an addictive personality, but like if you're going to get into it and you don't have money and you're going to like spend every dime, I mean, that's what we did. And heck,
Um,
we survived, but
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think that's the only
barely.
downside. That's the thing to think
Yeah.
about. Other than
Mhm.
that, it's really fun. It's great. It
Yeah.
like you said at the beginning, it's super strategy driven. There's a huge thing. For me, deck building is like half of the fun. The other half is like
Yeah.
playing with your friends. But like I
Mhm.
spend a lot of time deck building by myself, either on my phone, in a room, on my coffee table with thousands of cards sitting there. I spend a lot of time deck building.
Mhm.
And it's a ton of fun to just strategize and see, oh, I found this random card. Oh, that would go good with this card. Oh, I got to dig through this pile again, and
Yeah.
it's just,
Oh yeah.
it's so fun. It's so much
Mhm.
fun. You can be so unique. You can do things. You finally put together a deck and you really like it and you play it all the time. Your friends enjoy it. They're like, oh, I want to play that deck again. And then you can go find like fancy arts and stuff of cards and buy those and like make your deck special to you because you've got all the foils and all the alternate arts or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so it can be really cool, you know.
Yeah.
If you can get into it, it's a lot of fun.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that it's pretty much all the points that I was going to cover right there is it can be you can feel that peer pressure, especially when the people that you're playing with are playing expensive decks, because losing sucks and it's hard to win when your opponent's playing, you know, 70, $80 cards against your 50 cent to $2 cards.
Yep.
If their deck is a couple $100 and yours is only 20, odds are they're going to win, and you're going to feel like you need to spend more to win. And so one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to spend the money to get better or you're going to quit. I've seen it both ways. So, yeah,
The
that's
unfortunate part
that's
is you can build a $20 deck that'll beat a couple $100 deck. Maybe not super consistently, but pretty often. The problem
mm,
is getting to the point where you understand the game well enough to do that. You've probably spent a bunch of money already because it took
yeah,
us like we've been playing for 10 something years,
yeah.
plus years probably, right? And I mean just now I'm starting to feel like I really, I don't know how you'd say it, like I almost feel like I could judge a tournament,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
like I understand the rules really well, interactions of
Hmm.
each thing and how those stack. And
Yeah.
once you get to that point, building a $20 deck is feasible. But
Yeah.
that's,
I know,
you know what
right?
I mean? That's 10 years later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um yeah, so I think that, like, if you can financially afford it, and you can get some people that are all in agreement, house rules, we stick to this power level, and
Hmm.
at least until you can learn the game enough to spend the amount of money that you would want to have a more competitive deck, then yeah, no, it's great. It's amazing. And it it gives you access, not that it's not accessible to everybody, but it gives you a specific access to a group of people that are, for the most part, like-minded in, I want to play Magic, I want other people to play Magic, and so I'm going to invite them I'm going to find this common ground with them. Strangers, people that you never met and sometimes will never see again. They will treat you, like, as cheesy as it sounds, like family,
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like, oh yeah, you play, what do you play? And it becomes like talking about your family history. It's like, oh, how long have you been playing? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. How many decks do you have? Oh yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. What
There's
did you
this.
think about that set? What did you think about this card?
Yep.
And
The,
so it just becomes this like crazy, awesome, heartwarming experience when it
so
comes to these kind of communities.
there's a meme I have to mention
Yeah.
that just sums this whole thing up. Okay, it's this big armored dude in an RPG game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like a stick figure, but it's like a big armored looking stick figure, and then a tiny little stick figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
With like a little baby sword. And the big dude's like hunched over the little person, and there's just a rain of arrows just smashing into his back. And
Yeah.
he's saying to the little person, the new player of the game, okay, now press spacebar to jump. And it's like,
That's it's like teaching your wife or girlfriend how to play, you know? It's like, okay, honey, stop walking into the wall, please.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
enemy's over there.
Yep,
Oh man.
exactly.
Yeah, that is perfect. Yeah, it's you know, um especially with when I taught a new person and I brought him to my play group, everybody else is playing like crazy and I'm just like, all right, so this is what you want to do on your turn. This is what this card does. All right, yeah, no, yep. I'm trying to beat you, but I got to help you too. I can't just throw
Hmm.
you to the wolves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, I totally get it. You definitely don't want to like tell somebody how awesome Magic is, and then have them want to quit
Beat them
right
over and over
after.
again.
Yeah, I know, right? Like the first 15 times is fun, but after that it gets kind of. But anyway, that is our outlook on the game that we love, the game that has so many awesome memories that we've created, made so many awesome friendships that we still, you know, we're still in contact with them. I
Hmm.
mean, there's plenty of awesome experiences and awesome times and just fun and enjoyment to have. And
Yep.
so it's such a great way to be social. It's such a great opportunity to really flex your mind when it comes to strategy, when it
Yep.
comes to learning the rules and stuff. It's definitely highly recommended.
Absolutely. I agree.
So anyway, that's gonna be our episode for tonight. Thank you so much for listening. We definitely appreciate it. There's a little
Yep. Yep.
button on there that you know says rating. Go ahead and click that for us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Give
But
us a comment, please.
yeah,
Say something.
something, please.
We
All right,
appreciate
cool.
it.
Well, yep, that's our time, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See you guys later.